Rebel religion and the news.
All right, good morning, everybody. We're going to talk about gambling. We're going to do that in the second segment. But first, we're going to discuss famous people who say they're Christians, or even they don't really believe the faith, but they like to use Jesus as a cudgel to kind of bash, people who have different beliefs than they do. The latest person involved in this is Jimmy Kimmel, talk show host. He was on a show. Oh, first of all, I should introduce who I am. I'm Jerry Lennon. It's Alfredo Romero, the pastor of Rock of Life Fellowship, and Bishop Peter Hansen of St. Augustine Anglican Church in downtown Chico.
How are you today?
We're doing good.
Good.
So anyway, Jimmy Kimmel likes to tell everybody that he was raised Catholic and believes that means anything when we see him live his life, not at all, sometimes, I think, in accordance with the doctrines of the Catholic Church. But sometimes, that's a judgmental thing. But he was on Ted Danson's podcast of Cheers fame, and he decided to lecture Christians that Jesus wouldn't approve of enforcing immigration law. To some people, this is just, I want to make sure I get the quote what he said. He just said it's wild how people use Jesus as a political prop while ignoring what he actually said. Telling his followers to, quote, render under Caesar what is Caesar's and submit to governing authorities. That means respecting civil law. But Jimmy Kimmel thinks, what would Jesus think about this? And he apparently believes that people should, we should just let people into our country because that's probably what Jesus would do. So I opened the floor. And you know what? It does sound very rational. People who are suffering and want to come to the country, why not let them into the country if they live, I'm not saying I think this is the way it should be, but he makes an interesting argument, and a lot of Christians have that argument. What say you guys?
Well, immigration is a good thing. We think that people should enter our country, that they should become part of America, not that we just let the walls fall down and let everybody just walk in and take what they want and give them free money and transportation to any city that they want. What's that? I mean, that's not what it is. You can't find a New Testament example of this dynamic working in nations, invading other nations for what they have. There's nothing about it in New Testament. So saying what Jesus said or did, but I mean, he did chase the money changers out of the temple. He felt there was something wrong with that, and he took literally arms against that himself. But if you have the Old Testament book of Judges is a complete series of tales about when the Old Testament church failed God and started to get lazy about their faith and fall back to old ways. All of these foreign nations in a row, all the ones around them who were pagans, overran them, came in, took over, stole their crops, stole their women, killed them, did nasty things to them, enslaved them, and it would take then a special judge, somebody God would raise up to drive them out. Well, what's the dynamic there? I mean, God is for the sovereignty of your nation.
Well,
I'm not talking about racial purity, but right. I'm just talking about a nation belongs to the people of that nation, not somebody who's just invading.
Does God frown on a one world government?
Prophecy says that's where we're going. One world monetary system, and one world nation. We're heading that way according to prophecy. I don't know if God's for it, against it, but if it's pulling us away from him, he's against it. If it's going to come to the end of the world, God knows that that's what's going to happen. So in that sense, yes. But I also wanted to point out Luke. The beginning of Luke talks about Joseph and Mary going back to Bethlehem for a census, and everybody had returned to the homeland to be registered. So there are borders, and there is citizenship. I mean, Paul had dual citizenship.
Right.
And there's a proper way to do it. So, I mean, it's as hotly contested even in the church. And I've got a few people that would say, I had a conversation with a gentleman one time in the church, and this is a couple of years ago when Biden was president, and there's a large group of Haitians trying to get in, and we had this conversation, and I said, well, I was trying to explain to them what's going on. There's not even enough people to process it when they come in the right way, and he basically says, well, just process them, let them in, without thinking the repercussions to the towns in the area that run out of money, that sort resources. You got these small towns, they can't afford to place people. There's why there's a right way and a wrong way to do things. So my personal opinion is, my wife's grandparents were immigrants, and before the fire, we had records of them coming into Ellis Island and being processed and things like that. So there's a right way and a wrong way to do things.
Yeah.
Right. Respond to this. This is kind of funny. Somebody post. You should let in more refugees because Jesus said to be compassionate in the Bible somewhere. No, I'm not a Christian, and I have nothing but contempt for your backward religious beliefs. So, yeah, this argument wouldn't work on me, but maybe if I use it on you, you'll do what I want.
That sounds about right.
That's about it.
That sounds like Jimmy Kimmel.
That's
But
it.
I don't want to say that because maybe he's a deep believer, and he very well might be. But but that is an argument that many people will use who not necessarily don't believe in God or even call themselves Christians, but people who are sincere Christians believe that we should show compassion. And those are the people I want to talk to, not the people who are using Christianity as a cudgel for their political beliefs, but for those Christians who really believe that we should let anybody and everybody into the country who wants to be. How do we battle that when we're confronted with that question?
Well, we have to manage immigration. I mean, it is the most ludicrous thing. And certainly many European countries let down their borders as well. This has seemed to be an orchestrated thing. Orchestrated in a way, but it's mayhem. I mean, I wouldn't want to hear the music that orchestra plays because it's disorganized. You're letting in, we've seen they let in the worst elements of several nations. They emptied out prisons. They emptied out insane asylums, and they just packed them over our border and say, you take them. You're the good people. You should be able to handle these. Mm-hmm. And so we get these enormous South American gangs who overtake cities, pour drugs into the country, align with the cartels that are bringing in these poisonous drugs, and terrorize people and kill them. Well, that's a good idea. Can you have a little discernment? Mm-hmm. Can you check out people? Are they diseased? Are we taking on a problem that's going to start a pandemic in our country? Mm-hmm. Do they have any skills? Do we have to teach them English? Will they learn English when they get here? Are they going to be a problem employing because they can't really get along with it? Are they handicapped?
Yeah.
About 7 or 8 years ago, I went to cover a story, and it was on a swearing in to become a U.S. citizen. And there were about 50 or so men and women, about split 50-50. It was somewhere in Biggs or Gridley, I don't remember which. Representative Doug LaMalfa showed up, and they were sworn in as U.S. citizens. And I will tell you, I got a little almost emotional myself watching it. It was extremely a prideful moment. The men and women, their chests were just expanded out. Like they felt so much pride to be a U.S. citizen. And I thought, wow, this is really a special event. And it makes me realize that there is something unfair about cutting in line.
Yes.
Have you ever been at you're getting ready to go on the freeway and you're in the right lane and you're trying to get on, and somebody comes down the left side and at the last second, just before you're going onto the on-ramp, cuts into line and moves in ahead of you.
Yeah.
Now, that's not illegal, but it really kind of ticks you off a little bit when that happens. Mm-hmm. I know I've done it myself. And so I understand why people get upset about it.
Well, there's a couple of theories out there. One of them is a party opened up the borders in hopes of getting more voters. If we give them enough stuff, they'll be loyal to us and they'll vote for us forever. There's another theory, and it's also regarding end times, where You open up the borders and one world government, everybody just floods in. Here's an argument that I saw one time in a debate about immigration. We can be, as a country, multi-ethnic, but it's very difficult to be multicultural because you basically end the culture that you've overwhelmed. And I'll give you an example. Look at London. There's lots of things going on in England, especially London, with a Muslim mayor, and people have taken over because they opened up their borders. Certain areas of London, you don't even recognize it. You would think you were in the Middle East.
Which brings up the question I want to pose to the bishop. Does God prefer seeing different countries having different cultures and different customs, or does he want to see it as the world as one big melting pot? Or
Well,
do we know?
someone might want to get very specific about that and make this a Christian country, and it is by
Sure.
law or something. It has to be one religion. So you narrow your culture down to one thing. But the culture of America is all accepting in that manner, from every nation, from every background, every language can come here. But there's a reason America is successful, and if we allow that to be disassembled and thrown out and trampled on, if our flag becomes a symbol of hatred, and our founding documents are unknown or unheard from, well, we're in trouble. I recently heard this wonderful combination. Jordan Peterson talked about how freedom must be combined with responsibility.
Yes.
And that is like saying democracy needs a republic. Democracy is freedom, unbound. 51%, you can do anything you want, anything. But a republic says, no, there are some things that override that there are rules of engagement that we will have forever.
When people talk about democracy, remember, if somebody came up and said, you know what, we want to turn Bishop Hanson's house into a bed and breakfast, and we got 51% of the people voting for it, sorry, Bishop, you lose your house. That's democracy,
Right.
and just pure democracy doesn't work. We're going to step aside. We're going to talk about gambling. What's going on in the NBA, and is gambling okay? We'll be right back. All right, gambling. The NBA's got itself in some hot water here because some of their players and coaches are involved in a gambling scheme, poker, fixing games, points. Not fixing games, fixing proposition bets. Very simply put, a certain player, you could bet on whether a certain player will score a certain amount of points or a certain amount of rebounds. You might say, Joe Smith, the over/under 6 rebounds in the game. Well, you could easily fix that, and so the guy gets 4 rebounds and decides to leave the game, and then he gets the under, and then suddenly he wins that bet. So it's easy to fix these type of propositions, if not necessarily the games, and that's kind of what's happening in the NBA.
Shades of Pete Rose
It is
Yeah.
shades of Pete Rose.
and Black Sox scandal.
The Black Sox scandal was worse, though, because they actually fixed games to lose.
Yeah.
And here we're talking about fixing games. So, but even then, that's fixing a
For
game.
gambling. And what about the
Sure.
NBA referee quite a few years ago, Tim?
Right. Can't remember his name.
Tim something. But yeah, he was actually making calls because he was trying to fix the games.
Wow.
Yeah, I forget his name, but he went to prison. And here's the thing. Gambling is another one. We're hitting all the hot topics today in the church. I've got some people that I know that would say the Bible doesn't really say anything about gambling. It really talks about the love of money, and it talks about the Lord being our provider. Some people would tell me, hey, look, we spend $100, we go, we have a nice dinner, we play a few games,
Yeah.
we come home, and we're good. But then there's those people that I've seen that are addicted, and they go, I'm just trying to make my rent, and I've got my Social Security and my check from work or whatever, and I gotta make money. And so is it not trusting God? He's the provider. If you're relying on gambling to be your provider, there's a big problem.
Have either of you dealt with somebody who had a gambling addiction?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell me about it.
The son, about a 20-year-old son of a parishioner of mine, had a terrible gambling addiction, and combined with cocaine. So he was spending money at one end and losing money at the other, and shaking her down, and it was terrible. He lost so much money, and became abusive, and it was just a change of personality. You go in, you go into one of these Indian casinos, and you see these people there in their retirement age, going outside to smoke, coming inside, sitting there with these video screens flashing, and it's like this drug. It is a drug, and it overwhelms you. You become mad. Only a few times in my life have I gotten a little bit of whiff of that sort of thing. I mean, I played cards for money way in college. A little bit of money. It was nickel dime stuff, but it was when you got on a roll a little bit, which was seldom enough for me. How that gets a hold of you, you feel, wow, now I can really get something. Usually, I was on the losing end. I counted up the money that I
You
lost.
and everybody else.
Yeah,
I counted up the money that I'd lost to my roommate, and I figured out I just bought him his new Nikon F camera.
Yeah. So
Taught me something.
The Bible doesn't explicitly say. I know they casted lots for Jesus's some of his items at the cross. Is that correct?
Yeah,
Or-
casted lots for
that's
his
the
garments.
soldiers. That's not
Yeah.
commendation.
Right.
But they did do a sort of drawing of straws or something to pick Matthias as the first replacement apostle.
Okay.
But that was after qualifying two men as equally good, and they just let it be.
And that's not
qualified.
really gambling because you're not putting anything at stake.
Yeah, it's not.
Yeah. Let me read a Bible verse. It says in Proverbs 13:11, wealth from get-rich-quick schemes quickly disappears. Wealth from hard work grows over time.
It's
And-
true.
And then it says we are to work hard and earn a living. 2 Thessalonians 3:10 says, for even when we were with you, we would give you this command. If anyone is not willing to work, let him not eat. So basically there's a couple of things that are saying here is that what we said earlier, this is not our provider. Gambling is not our provider. God's our provider. Hard work is what we are to rely on. And the other thing is anybody gets caught into gambling like that, it's really the love of money.
Yeah.
It's, money is not evil. The love of money is evil. God
Right.
has his money for a reason. But the love of money, you get that fever. And I've never really been a big gambler. I went to Vegas one time years ago when I was like 27. And I used to like playing poker. And I'd never been in a casino and played poker. Never. But we played around the house and all. So I went and sat down with a couple of $100 or sat down at, I don't even know what casino it was. I sat down with the big boys and was gambling. And I was getting a little lucky and winning. And then I said, I'm going to bluff. And everybody folded but this one guy. He would not fold. And we're all in. And so I get called, and I got a pair of sixes. I go, what is this guy hanging on to?
Yeah.
And he threw a pair of sevens. So I walked out and go, I'm never doing this again. Never.
It's a good lesson.
There's a parable that our Lord taught in several forms that had to do with talents, where the Lord left these servants in charge of a certain amount of his treasure, and he judged them on the basis of what they did with it. When he came back, Lord, here your talent has gotten 10 talents, because I invested it. Investing something isn't playing the line on a wheel somewhere. It is having good judgment, looking at a business enterprise, saying, if I back this, this will yield me more. But the yield is initially goods and services, things that are purchasable, things of real value.
I was just about to ask that because the stock market is just soaring and soaring every day. And to some, it feels like gambling. But like as you said, if you are studying things, you're not just, saying, I'm going to buy this stock and buy that stock. Somebody gave me a tip here or there. If you're actually studying and investing and being able to decide that's not gambling, but to some people,
Pretty close.
the stock market could get, for some people, who are just taking a wild guess on what kind of stocks to pick, there is a certain gambling element, or is it not?
There can be, because there are a lot of things where they aren't really investing in goods or companies. They're investing in a rise and fall tendency, or I mean, there's all kinds of ways to play the stock market.
Speculating.
Yeah, speculating on things and riding a margin, or hedge funds, or
Or when a company starts an IPO and you're trying to make a quick buck and you try to, you
Yeah, but
invest
that's
in and you pull out real quick.
Having said
Oh, yeah,
all
that's
that,
true.
having said all that, I lived in Vegas for a little over 10 years, and I worked as a sportscaster, so I got to know a lot of the sports bookies and was really close to the whole gambling element. And I will tell you that it is more fun to watch a game, even if you have 10 or 20 bucks on the side. It makes it more. You have something at stake, and I'm not convinced that that is necessarily a sin, because you know you can say, well, you could have given that $20 to the poor. Yeah, but we go to Disney World, and does that mean we're not supposed to go to Disney World or have a good time or go on vacations because we should deny ourselves having something enjoyable? I guess the key is where the line is drawn when it becomes just an enjoyable pastime to when it becomes something that's bad.
I think you have to step back and see, what's the fruit of something. And I think, losing $20 on an enjoyable afternoon, just fooling around, is not some major sin. But we had a couple of Catholic lady friends who went to Reno and told us, that we're gonna do something, and they prayed to Mother Mary that she would see them through and get them something, and so they won $5,000.
Whoa.
$5,000, and they praised Mary, and she was all good for them. And I said, okay, so did you take the money home, and did you quit playing there? Oh, no, we gambled it all away.
Oh, no. No, you could have came home and tied at least. Here's the thing for me. I have to leave this. I've had this conversation with a few of my parishioners, and like I say, look, it's between you and God. It's if you feel good about it, and I've had people say, look, my husband and I, like once a month, every 6 weeks, every couple of months, we go out and because they're really nice dinners at these places. You go to dinner, we watch a show, we may take $50 and try our hand at a slot machine, and then we go home. We've had a nice night, and then so I started thinking, well, where is this, Lord? It's entertainment, controlled entertainment versus you take your paycheck and you're looking for provision. I got to make more than I have, and I got to make more money, and then you gamble away your paychecks. It's entertainment versus provision, and that's kind of what I kind of felt in its provision. And people are looking for these gambling ventures to be their provision, and that's not the way it works.
And of course, what's happened with the NBA and what happened with Pete Rose and what happened with the 1919 Black Sox scandal was much more than that, because they were corrupt. If you're gambling, you're just hurting yourself. But when you're corrupt and fixing a game,
There you go.
you're hurting other people, and it's against the law. It becomes a felony, or at least if it's not, I'm sure it should be.
Well, it's like a guy taking his paycheck and going to a bar and drinking it all up, and not paying his rent, and his family starves.
Oh yeah.
Or same thing, going out and gambling it away because he thinks he can do better.
Yeah.
And he's not looking fairly at himself and saying, this isn't working.
And again, whatever we do, we are to do it for God's honor, God's glory. Whatever we do,
Yeah.
everything we do. is
And
for
if you
God's
win,
glory.
you got to give at least 10%.
Please
to the
tithe.
church.
Please,
geez.
please.
People promise that to me.
I know.
I'm going to Reno. I said, stop
If I win
it.
$1 million,
Just stop.
I'll give you $100,000.
Just don't.
St. Augustine Anglican Church. They're located over on Salem Street. 10 o'clock service time with Bishop Peter Hansen. Thank you so much. We're out of time. Hey, take good care, everybody. Talk to you next time. So long.